All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we are unpacking the core philosophies of the Revenue Ronin. What we've got for you here is essentially a masterclass on escaping the solopreneur grind. So, if you have ever felt like you're just running on a hamster wheel of your own creation, well, this is absolutely for you. We're going to break down the exact frameworks and mindsets you need to build a business that actually sustains itself.
So we got to start with this absolute gut punch of a realization. And the context here is super crucial. Justin, who's the architect behind these strategies, spent 18 straight months hosting daily, weekday Spaces sessions. He literally didn't miss a single one. Just complete, relentless consistency. But then, he took his first full week off. He completely unplugged. And when he came back, he had living proof of the exact lesson he'd been teaching. If your business doesn't run without you, you don't have a business. You just have a job. And it's not just a metaphor. It is the ultimate stress test for whatever you've built.
Now that we know what's at stake, here's the blueprint for our masterclass today. We're going to cover the ultimate business test, mastering the revenue engine, tactics for brand growth, real-world community wins, proof from the trenches, and finally, building your ultimate legacy.
All right, part 1, the ultimate business test, surviving the 95%.
95%. Look, we've all heard that massive statistic about businesses failing, right? But the whole point here isn't to panic. The core philosophy is that you shouldn't stare at the stat. You need to stare at the work. We're talking about commitment, discipline, data, and results. Those 4 elements are exactly what prevent you from throwing in the towel in year 1. It's all about tuning out the noise of those failure rates and getting hyper-focused on your daily execution.
Moving right along to part 2, mastering the revenue engine, frameworks for freedom.
Okay, this is absolutely crucial. You literally have to follow this exact order. People first, then process, then systems. And why does this matter so much? Because if you skip a step, like say you try to build systems before you even have the right people or processes figured out, you haven't built a scalable business. You've just created a highly elaborate, highly stressful way to trade your time for money. You've got to nail the who, figure out the how, and only then do you automate it with systems.
But hey, what happens when things inevitably go sideways? Because let's be real, they will. That brings us to the AAA method, accurate, aligned, actions. In business, things shift daily. Algorithms change, clients bail, software crashes. When that happens, this brilliant little method is how you stay focused. You don't panic, you simply run the AAA framework, recalibrate your direction, and execute your next best move. It takes all the raw emotion right out of the pivot.
Empowering that whole thing, it's the 3-pillar revenue engine. Think of this as your foundational operating system. It starts with discipline, which means showing up consistently, just like we talked about. Now, that discipline generates data. You can actually look at what's working and what's falling flat. And finally, acting on that data inevitably drives results. Discipline, data, results. Honestly, if your business feels stuck in the mud, I guarantee you are ignoring one of these 3 pillars.
Which brings us to part 3, tactics for brand growth, fueling the engine. Okay, here's a super tactical play straight from the source material, the Revenue Ronin Recapture System. And it highlights a massive blind spot for most creators out there. Retargeting more in traffic, meaning the people who have already interacted with you but just haven't bought yet, is hands down the lowest cost per acquisition move you can make in paid media. Most companies are just leaking revenue by skipping this entirely. So, putting this recapture tactic in place, it's an absolute game changer for your bottom line.
Now, actually driving that traffic means rethinking your brand from the ground up. We've got to shift from trading time for money to using brand association as a weapon. And brand association is definitely not an accident. You have to intentionally decide exactly what you want triggered in someone's mind the second they hear your name. Like, are you the systems guy? Are you the email marketing expert? Decide what that is, and then show up relentlessly until that brand association sticks like glue.
And look, if you don't take this brand association stuff seriously, it's going to cost you. Big time. Over $1 million, actually. That staggeringly high number is the estimated cost of Justin's 2 biggest career mistakes. And what were they? Spending 15 years without a personal brand and 15 years without building an email list. Just think about the compounding interest of a missed audience over a decade and a half. So the takeaway here is crystal clear. Start building your brand and your list today so you don't leave a literal $1 million on the table.
All right, part 4, real-world community wins, momentum in action.
I just love this rapid-fire proof of momentum. Take Jerry, for example. He used these exact consistency frameworks to hit 11,000 LinkedIn connections and then leverage that into a real-world networking conference. Then there's Ben, who restructured his whole business into a portfolio company and launched a brand new tool. And Danielle, who is bringing her project to Audible and actively speaking on panels in Denver. This is exactly what accurate, aligned actions look like when you put them into practice.
And that momentum, it just keeps rolling right across totally different industries. You've got Christelle over here, experimenting with tech and meta glasses to document life in real time and think bigger. Coop DeVille is managing a thriving 150-member crypto community while also doing music NFT production. And Will is doing a deep dive into the psychology of focus versus threat response, literally treating attention as a master skill. It really doesn't matter what your niche is. If you apply the disciplined data results engine, you are going to get momentum.
And this next bit brilliantly illustrates a massive byproduct of this whole system. Justin openly posted about migrating his paid community off a platform, and Beehive directly DM'd him. Building in public isn't just for show, and it's sure as heck not just for ego. When you consistently showcase your process and your data, it creates massive inbound opportunities from major platforms in real time. Trust me, the market is always watching.
So on to part 5, proof from the trenches, the host's journey.
Now, you might be sitting there wondering, why should I trust these frameworks at all? Well, let's look at the hard data. This timeline proves the incredible grit behind the method. Success definitely wasn't handed out here. The Revenue Ronin origin story starts with a locked figure of over 1,800 job rejections. Just think about that, 1,800 times being told no. Then came that million-dollar brand mistake we talked about, but by applying the people, process, systems framework, and the revenue engine, that massive failure transformed into over $100 million in trackable career revenue, and it even led to official ambassadorships with cutting-edge tech companies like HeyGym. It's the ultimate proof that you've got to stare at the work, not the failure stat.
And that leads us to our final section, part 6, building your ultimate legacy, the final word.
Finally, let's actually slow things down for a second. Why do we build all these systems in the first place? Because if we're being honest with ourselves, none of the metrics or the revenue goals mean a thing if we lose sight of the bigger picture. At the very end of our lives, we are not going to care about our open rates. These are the only 4 simple questions we're going to ask ourselves. Did I live? Did I love? Did I matter? Did I make a difference? This framework forces us to look way beyond the daily grind and build a business that actually supports a meaningful life, rather than just consuming it. The mandate here is just incredibly clear, and it's totally holistic. True success isn't just about the financials. It requires building every single aspect of your life. You have to build that mind through continuous learning, build that body so you can sustain your energy, build that business using the exact systems we've gone over today, build that bank account to secure your freedom, and above all else, build that legacy to ensure you leave a lasting impact.
Which brings us right to the ultimate question I want to leave you with in this explainer today. I want you to look at your daily operations. Look at your calendar right now. Are you intentionally building a legacy? Or are you just working a very stressful, very fragile job that you basically created for yourself? It is time to build the engine. Stay healthy, stay hungry, stay humble. We'll see you at the top.